Good evening, Buffs Nation. Hope you guys are having a wonderful evening. I am excited and honored to be joined by Ryan again from Sports Chat 503, who is at the Colorado Oregon game this Saturday. So, we're going to talk to him a little bit about his experience, about his thoughts on the game experience as a whole, and then take a look at the rest of the Pac-12, see what else is going on with this conference. Again, it's really exciting that before this conference is blown to absolute oblivion, it's going out on a very high note, that's for sure. So appreciate all the love in the chat, but we're going to go ahead and bring on Ryan. Ryan, how are you doing? Thanks again for your time.
Fantastic, man. How are you? Thank you so much,
I'm
David.
doing
Appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing great. Definitely with what helped me deal with the butt whooping that y'all put on yesterday was man, the fact that my Broncos lost by 50 points today, and double whammy. But it is what it is. I mean, y'all got the wins. And you got the click to go with it this weekend. Tell us about the game experience, man. It looked like it was quite an electric atmosphere. They pulled off the checker pattern in the crowd. I must say, it looked pretty awesome.
Yeah. My throat is a little harsh, man. I'm telling you, that's medical grade water, Dave. I left a lot of it on the field at Autzen, man. It was awesome. I've been a season ticket holder for over 15 years. My family's been season ticket holder since the 70s. I've been to a lot of games at Oregon. I mean, a lot. And there's very few that come with this amount of momentum. And I kind of likened it to like a storm surge, right? When you have this big storm that comes in on a coast, you get the big waves that start coming with it before, and you could just feel this thing coming. The media, the way that the modern media works, you can kind of talk some of these things into, creation or destiny or whatever. And this year has been just an amazing situation for them. I'm watching them on 60 Minutes. I mean, why am I watching college football on 60 Minutes? Who else is on 60 Minutes, right? And so the ideology is that it was just the perfect time, perfect place, and the fact that Autzen got to host that is really amazing. So it was kind of like if a number one band comes and plays a concert in your town, kind of a thing, So it was a unique situation. A lot of people were into it. The fans were there. The students had just moved in. That was move-in day, actually, for a lot of the kids. And it was just an awesome opportunity. So, like I said, I've been to a lot of games there. This was the 6th largest game ever at Autzen Stadium. It was a really unique environment. So you got to give shouts out to the Buffs for bringing that environment. That environment doesn't exist without the other team as well. And everything that was coming with Coach Prime and all the other buzz and whether it's hype or whether it's, whatever the term you want to use, it feels like it is something that is natural. They're coming back again. They're going to have the big noon kickoff. They're going to come right out of it into Big Fox for the USC game this week. So the hype will continue here. They have to get through the couple weeks here. There's going to be some other rough patches. The Pac-12 is a really, really tough league this year. So I just felt like for Oregon, they completely knocked it out of the park. This whole thing came at a perfect time. Millions of views, ABC across the country, and they completely dominated. I mean, on every phase, at every level. I think the fake punt is one of the plays of the year so far. Backed all the way up against it. Even though you're up 2 scores, it's just like it was a backbreaker, and I sit right behind the visitors' bench, and I can see their reaction. And that at that point in time, that was absolutely taking the knees out, and they never recovered. The Ducks went down and scored again. They scored again, and they scored again, and then it was like, I mean, I was at halftime talking with my friends up there doing our normal thing at halftime, and I was literally speechless. I'm rarely speechless. I couldn't compare it to anything else. So. There was one game where I could compare it to a Cal game, years ago when Chip Kelly was still the offensive coordinator, where Cal was, I think, number 6 in the country. It was just a huge game, packed stadium, and Oregon came out and it was similar. It was like a 42-3. but it was just a complete steamroll. I give a lot of respect for Colorado. I thought this was going to be closer. We talked about it on your channel.
Yeah.
But this was a game that will go down in lore as being a super important game for Oregon. And it has to do with the fact that Colorado was bringing that whole hype machine with them.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I think I was on Coach I's show yesterday or last night, and I went on there to talk about it a little bit. And I just, again, with like bringing the show, bringing the fight, bringing the eyeballs, like if we're welcoming all the attention, when we're winning, like you gotta own it, man, when you're on the other side of things. And that's just the nature of the game. I think, man, like one thing that we talked about with Oregon, man, is that y'all really took care of business in the non-conference play portion of the season. Again, weird things happen at Tech. They just happen in Lubbock. But I think Dan Lanning's approach this season for the Ducks, so far it's just been all gas, no brakes. And I think having that extremely aggressive approach within the first 3 games of the season, I mean, the Ducks were so comfortable doing what they were doing, being the aggressor. I at the beginning of the game, I'm like, why the hell are you going for 2? Not that it ended up mattering at all, but you see like the confidence to continue to go out there and be the aggressor. Like you were saying, the fake punt, I was saying it on my watch along. I'm like, you absolutely decline this penalty. You get the ball back. You can make it a 1-score game. And after that, it was just too much. We never responded back. And again, man, I think that, like you said, this is a big game for Oregon and just setting the tone for them the rest of the way in conference play. And I think it's real exciting, man, because you got a team that in Utah is still taking care of business. You got a team, just north of y'all in Washington that looks pretty stellar as well. I'm not throwing USC in there right now. I just feel like they're a little too vulnerable. But how are you feeling right now in terms of, man, I mean, right now I would expect y'all to definitely be in that Pac-12 game. Who do you want to face? Who do you not want to face? Is there anybody you don't want to face? Because I don't think, after watching that game yesterday, I don't think anybody else in the Pac-12 has the speed off of the defensive line the way the Ducks do. That was a huge thing that really stuck out to me.
Yeah, so a bunch of stuff there. I think the first thing is, looking forward into the Pac-12 championship game and all that sort of stuff. I think the Ducks proved that they were a part of the upper shelf of the league. Yeah. I tend to think Washington could be considered the best team in the league right now. Washington's killing it. Oregon looked great. Yeah. So next week, both those schools have a fairly easy game, and then they have a bye week, and then they play each other. So, like, this is now for the Ducks. We're really looking ahead to that Washington matchup. So you got this game against Stanford this week on the road. Nice little game. Stanford looks to be the worst team in the league. Coming off a really emotional game, Colorado. And, I think a lot's to be made these days. The social media stuff, there's lots to be made these days about, and I'm going to go on just a quick, 2-minute rant if I can here. About, when the average person didn't play sports at a high level. Mm-hmm. They don't understand what really happens behind closed doors. They go to games, they support the team, they watch the game on TV, they watched a very polished version of it. They don't see practices, they don't see workouts, they don't hear what's going on behind the closed doors, they don't hear how coaches motivate their players. And historically, it was really wild. I mean, I went back to my high school over the last weekend because the team I work at played the team that I played. And I looked out in the field and I had PTSD of just oh my God, I remember just felt I was going to die. Literally thought I was going to die right there. Just going to work in practice. And the average person kind of doesn't have that aspect. And that's just high school. But go to college, go to the pros, go to anything else. The amount of level of motivation. So I think a lot's being made now of going into the locker room, and people get to see what people sometimes will say behind closed doors. And rarely do you even let a camera in a locker room. That's kind of, whatever the case. But all week, I think the Ducks played it very classy and very professional on, hey, we respect Colorado. We're not trying to buy into nothing. It's not personal or whatever. But the Duck came out with the big hat on, with the glasses, smashing a thing that said prime time, with the thing that said time's up chain. I mean, these guys lean into it. So I think that for everybody else who's just like likes football as a regular sport and played the sport and respects it on that level, they kind of see through a lot of that other stuff, but other people kind of really buy into that. So the whole thing about clicks and all that other sort of stuff about like we play for this and not for this, or we do this and not for this. That's what a lot of coaches say before they're hyping up their team. They just happen to catch that on camera or whatever else the case may be. So I thought the game played out differently than we thought. I thought that Colorado would score more. I thought that Oregon wouldn't really struggle with this win, but I did think that Oregon would be at times needing to get a first down or needing to move the chains or what else like this. That fake punt was completely unnecessary. You didn't need to do that. Punt it. Three and out him again. Get another sack. I mean, 7 sacks on the day is just a really enormous number for this Ducks defense. And that's a defense that people really questioned last year, Dan Lanning's first year, Tosh Lupoi's first year. And now this year, when you've kind of had one more year to develop those guys and put the right guys in the right place, they start to look really good. And that's going to be really important because this conference gets very difficult very quickly for the Ducks. You talked about the Pac-12 championship. I think there's 4 teams at the very top here. And I think it's Oregon, Washington, USC, and I think it's Utah. I think Utah is going to find themselves at the end of the year in that conversation. I think Oregon State took a step back. They lost to the Cougs this weekend. I feel like there's other schools who might be kind of trying to get into that next level, but I don't see them being there. Oregon is clearly right now the hot team because everybody watched that game. But if you watched how Washington dismantled Cal, it was even worse.
Yeah.
So, and I think if Cal played Colorado today, Colorado could beat them or be very close. But I don't know about the Oregon-Washington game at all. ESPN has it like it is a 50-50 split, basically. So that's really where Oregon's mindset was. As soon as they beat Colorado the way it was, we kind of thought, okay, well, that's great. This worked out perfectly. Now we can go on to this other kind of business part of the schedule. And I think that whoever wins out of those 4 teams, whoever goes 3-1 goes to the Pac-12 championship. So if Oregon can go 3-1 out of those 4 games, they're going to face the other team out of those 4 teams that also went 3-1. That's the way I see it. I see Oregon State taking another loss, possibly this week. Utah, they host Utah on Friday night. So again, it's just things are wild. I love the Pac-12 so much. I really do hate to see it go down. But I do think also I'm looking ahead and kind of seeing how teams are going to fare. I think the Buffs are going to translate very well next year if they keep both the Sanders kids around for one more year together and have Dion again as the coach. Do you think it's hyped this year? And when Dion said, get me now because now is going to be when I'm at my worst, he's not incorrect, man. He's right on the money there. So I tend to think if they can put this thing together for a good couple, 3, 4, 5 years, they could really build something. They're not going to build it with us in the wherever conference we're in. You're going to be with all the rest of them folk in the Southland. So it's going to be a great situation either way. I did see people kind of caution this as, hey, if Colorado does lose this week and next week, it's still not that bad. They've still done better than they expected and this, that, or the other. And I think they're going to have to lean on that because the rest of their schedule, I think, does get a little more difficult. But I think you're going to a bowl game this year. I think you can just kind of pencil that in right now. So start making your plans.
Oh, yeah. I think there's still plenty of wins left for this team throughout the rest of the season. And it's very helpful that we don't play Washington this year to kind of help that. But yeah, like I think that this was, like we talked about, this matchup, we talked about how a lot of what Oregon does very well directly lines up in favor because they are the absolute weak spots of this team. And man, I forgot my friend Stephen Hamner from the QB Spotlight. He sent me a stat here, and I want to get this right, so I'll pull it up. But again, it just goes to show that it's like, with all that we talked about in terms of hoping to see some adjustment from Colorado with this Oregon offense, really there wasn't any difference in the defensive strategy that I felt like that we've seen previously. But 15 out of Bo Nix's 28 completions were behind the line of scrimmage, and we absolutely we absolutely let Oregon do what y'all do best. And yeah, some of that has to be attributed to, we still need another cycle, at least, to build out some of our trenches. I think Oregon will probably be, if you're looking at offense and defense, the fastest team that we will face this year. But man, it was kind of a bummer, man, to see like we're saying if CU's going to keep it close, they got to play a clean game. And outside of winning the turnover battle, 12 penalties, all sorts of things, shooting yourselves in the back, and with special teams, I think that we've been able to win despite mistakes like that happening within the first 3 weeks. Obviously, your odds of getting a win not playing clean football dramatically drop when you're on the road facing a top 10 opponent. And, we got what was coming for us without cleaning up any of that. So moving forward, though, I hope that there is some adjustment. I think that we're a better team than what we put on the field on Saturday. I do. I don't think, like, this reminded me of watching us play you guys pretty much every year outside of 2016. I do think we're a better team
Oregon's
than
been
what
good,
showed.
man. Oregon's been good. And during that Chip Kelly year, it was, they just boat race teams. It was really wild. And I was there. I saw, I have not missed a game at Autzen Stadium in 15 years. So, and we go to every one of them. We go to the bowl games. We do all that sort of stuff. This was a game that really stood out to me. And I don't know if that's just recency bias or what, but this was a cool game for me personally, because I went out there last year. I caught the vibe last year. I have friends that are Buffs, so I really kind of was rooting for y'all, and whenever I go to a place on the road, I kind of feel more in touch with that fan base, and I empathize with them a little bit more. And by the end of last year, I really felt bad, for the Buffs. And so when they got Deion, I've got my channel here. I've done it for, again, over 10 years here at YouTube. I talk about stuff all the time. I was saying whoever gets Deion is going to be able to have a home run if they play it correctly. I said it was just bound to happen. And the fact that Colorado took the chance on that, I was like, this is huge. So I really like the fact that it went down. I've said it over and over that it was so good that it happened at Autzen Stadium. Right now, it's good for the Buffs to do that, to go on the road and face what could be the best team in the Pac-12 in their house in their first week of the Pac-12. You couldn't really ask for more on that level. I was ear plugged in the whole time. My son's Apple Watch said over 100 on the decibel level or whatever. And so, Lord, it is ripping in there. Huge stadium. They did the stripe thing. It actually kind of worked for them. And it was an amazing, amazing day. And I don't think that happens without the Buffs. I think the Buffs bring that amazingness to the day. Now, the way that it worked out, the way that Oregon just kind of steamrolled over it, just made it even better. So now it is a lasting memory of, remember that time when that happened. But the actual build-up to this game was really unlike any other that we've seen.
Man, yeah. And I love that. Like, being in football purgatory for so long.
Exactly.
That, like, it's weird because it's like we were 1-11 last year, and we know, like, we're not national championship contenders this year. It's weird seeing Barstool Oregon put out T-shirts celebrating beating us, but at the same time, it's like kind of flattering to be part of the trash talk, and like,
you want to be in the conversation.
For schools to care about playing us again.
You want to be in the conversation.
Yes.
You want to matter. That and never has it mattered more than right now with conference realignment. Conference realignment has exposed all the weaknesses between those who have and those who have not. And the value that they add to a program is indicative to what the media companies value you as, not necessarily as the school with the alumni and the boosters or whatever. You can have a bunch of that sort of stuff, but if the media company doesn't want you or doesn't value you, then you don't necessarily have that sort of value. And Colorado has a long history. They are a very proud program, but in football, they were very close to teetering on irrelevance in football. I mean, over the time, not to talk junk or whatever, but over the time that they were in the Pac-12, they probably would have been better served to play like in the Mountain West.
Yes.
They would have been competitive. They would have been in the championship possibly. I'm not trying to diminish them. I'm just saying that was the level that everybody was beating Colorado. Everybody.
That's where I thought we were going last year at this point.
Exactly. So when I think about the Beavs and the Cougs, who whenever I thought about for the last 10 years, and again, I've done this on YouTube for over, I think it's 12 or 13 years now. I do it every week where I talk about who's going to beat who. There was a stretch of time where whoever beat Colorado or whoever played Colorado, they were going to win. The Beavs were going to play Colorado. Beavs. If the Cougs were going to play Cougs, you kind of got in a rhythm like that.
Yeah.
And that is a danger zone right now because that's a make it or break it. If you're in the right conference, you have value. And right now, the Beavs and the Cougs are both on the side outside looking in. It's unbelievable to think about this. And the fact that Colorado had the chance to get to the Big 12 and go, I am so thankful that they got there because they were really, for a while, they're teetering on some irrelevance. At the same time, we know about this. The Ducks were irrelevant for years, but the Ducks were irrelevant when college football was less important. Now college football is way more important to the American landscape and way more valuable. The Ducks were irrelevant in the 60s and 70s and 80s. They started getting good in the 90s. They were really good in 2000s and in 2010, and it's never been popular than right now. So if you were relevant in the last 20, 30 years, you've always been good to these kids that are around today because they don't know the history.
No doubt. Yeah. And that's why I'm going to be cheering for y'all as the season goes on, and especially in the Big Ten, because again, man, like it was pretty interesting with the PAC been pretty much guys, come on now. Y'all racist motherfuckers saying things in the chat. I gotta block y'all. Come on, y'all are better than that.
I don't see the chat on that page.
Not gonna tolerate any of that.
No, I'm anti-racist.
No, we're not. Yeah, we're not going to tolerate any of that.
I don't have any
junk, but
I can't even see the chat. I'm just looking at the screen. All I can see is you, David, and your smiling face, man. Appreciate what you do. Yeah, go ahead and do your thing. You got to moderate over there. You're like the executive producer and the host. You're the talent and the booker and everything. So appreciate you, David.
Man, well, hey, I love doing this, but what I was going to say was that, the PAC football has been pretty much isolated from realignment throughout all the decades that we've seen it happen in the Southwest, the Midwest, the East Coast. And, I think one thing that I look forward to is just seeing USC hopefully stuck in Big Ten mediocrity moving forward, and I think the success of Oregon is imperative for that to happen. So that's all I really wanted to say was, I know that there's been some trash talk and some different sound bites and all that. It's all part of the game. It's all part of selling the fight, and I'll be rooting for Oregon the rest of the way.
I totally agree, as I will be for the Buffs. A lot of that stuff's just how social media works these days, and how media now and social media have almost kind of merged in a Venn diagram in the middle where they feed off of each other in an echo chamber. No, I think it's a great time to be alive. I think it's a great time to be a Buffs fan. You're on the rise. You're going to go to a good conference. I think the Big Ten and the Big 12 are both going to recognize very quickly that the Pac-12 are really good teams. They're going to bring it. I mean, basketball-wise, UCLA, I think, is the number one team in the Big Ten in year one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In year one, I think Oregon, Washington, and USC are better than anybody else in the Big Ten outside of Michigan and Ohio State. I think they're right on the tier of Penn State, right? Historically. And maybe USC's has opportunities to even be better than that, or maybe even Oregon has opportunity to be better than that, right?
Yes.
But look at the Big 12. You're telling me that Utah isn't going to go into the Big 12 and absolutely eat? Oh, tell me about it. And they get to play BYU on the regular. They're going to dominate. Utah is a basketball, football across the board. They're good, man. You guys are going to play well. If you have the Deion Sanders effect for 3, 4 years, 5 years, oh my God, cash it in. Cash it in. It's going to go crazy. And then, you have the Arizona schools. I think Arizona on year one could compete for the basketball title in the Big 12 as well. So it's like in football and in men's basketball, both of which I think there's some really good talent coming from the West Coast that's filtering into these. Now, I don't think ACC is going to really gain that much from Stanford or Cal, but it is what it is. And the situation is I think this is a great situation for everybody who's going to a conference. Now, the Beavs and the Cougs, I feel terrible for them because, again, like I said, you guys in the Mountain West during those years, the Beavs were like that too for years, right? And that's part of the reason why they lost their value, quote unquote, was because they weren't relevant for those years. And teetering on mediocrity or irrelevance is a bad situation these days.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. Really quick question on conference stuff. Do you ever see kind of like a recalibration here at some point along the lines where
like a big national thing?
Well, like with non-revenue athletics going back to being more regional. I mean, I just feel like, I feel bad for some of your non-revenue sports out in Oregon having to go out to Maryland here soon and different. That just seems totally ridiculous. Like baseball.
It is. And they're going to have to figure it out. Now, I do think in those sports, if you do more of a round robin where you play your West Coast compadres more than you can play everybody else, you might be able to stay away from traveling every week, right? So you could host, and then you could go to your local, compadre, and then you might be able to host, and then you might have to go on the road, and then you could come back and maybe host again, or maybe they could work the schedule out to where it doesn't feel like there's as much travel. But you're right. I mean, my dad said it best. I love my dad dearly. He just keeps it very simple. He said this years ago, that he thought that football should just be separate from everything, and that all the other sports should play each other. The real non-revenue sports, if you keep going down the chain, they aren't even in any of the same conferences. If you go to start playing hockey or you start playing other sports where we don't even have that in the Pac-12, you got to play somewhere else. You got to patchwork the thing together or whatever. Even wrestling. It's not, everybody doesn't have the same sports in some of those. So yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. I think the revenue sports of college basketball and college football are really based on the television audience and capturing that moment. College football has every Saturday throughout the fall. That's prime time. Okay. And then college basketball has every Saturday through the winter. And then it has the tournament, which is unreal, like an absolute cash cow. If it didn't have that, it wouldn't make money.
No.
So the idea that, college sports, it makes a lot of money, I think is crazy. That's why these deals that these colleges are doing to go to the conferences, that's so that their athletic department can actually make some money. The only two athletic departments in the whole Pac-12 that made money over the last 3 years was Oregon and USC. Everybody else lost money in their athletics. So the reason why they're doing these deals actually has just as much to do with the non-revenue sports as it does with the big revenue sports. They're using the big revenue sports to gain more revenue to pay for all the other sports that aren't gaining anything that costs. So I think travel just becomes part of it. And for Oregon, we're already naturally traveling anywhere. It already takes us 2 hours, 3 hours to get anywhere in the air. And even to go to Los Angeles, it still takes time to get down there. And so going to New York or something like that, it's just adding more time. So I don't like it. I never have liked it. I got to talk with Phil Knight. Phil and I are from the same neighborhood. So when I talk to him at events, because he's around a lot of the Duck events, and whenever I get to talk with him, I always say, "Hey, Mr. Knight, I'm from Eastmoreland. That's our neighborhood." And he says, "Oh, okay, hey." And I tell him like where I'm from. We're like, he grew up like 2 blocks away from where I grew up, and I am allowed to get through this. Yeah, it's crazy, and I'm allowed to get through the security detail that way, right? And I can talk with them, and it's a very honest conversation because that we're just the 2 kids from Eastmoreland. But I asked him on his birthday tournament that he had. I said, "What do you think of the conference realignment?" He said, "I don't like it." So I said, "Well, all right. Phil doesn't like it. Okay, something to be said about that. It's out of the hands of the normal boosters. The big money people don't have a say in this. Even Phil doesn't have a say in this. This is bigger than that. Isn't that crazy to think about?
It is insane. It is insane.
And so the for us as regular folk, as alumni, fans, this, that, or the other, family, connections, whatever, we have nothing to do about it. So the fact that Oregon is going to the Big Ten, I think is brilliant. They're going to be on the 5-year plan, maybe where they're getting 30 million, basically the same as you guys are going to get in the Big 12. And then they're going to jump. And when they jump, I would not be surprised at all if the ACC crumbles. And if Notre Dame goes to the Big Ten, and if Notre Dame goes to the Big Ten, now we're talking major money. And if Oregon's in there before Notre Dame gets in there and they have the full slice, and then they get the Notre Dame money to come on top of it, I mean, now we're talking. And these research institutions all make way more money academically than they do athletically. I think, I think I was looking at the Beavs. I think the Beavs make around $600 and something million off of research institution. Wow. They're not worried about the 30 million they're getting from somebody. There's 600 and something. So the idea is that those numbers are skewed. That's why we got screwed when the presidents took charge of making decisions about athletics. The conference does not matter to the academic department. It matters to athletic department. Has nothing to do with any of the other stuff. And they got involved with the wrong stuff, and that's where they really got screwed. And they let the commissioner, kiss the hands and shake the babies of all everybody else that they wanted to, and grease the palms or whatever, because Larry Scott and George Kliavkoff both did not do the conference any favors whatsoever. So it was just a horrible situation from the jump, basically. And now a very proud conference that has the right to exist is now gone.
Yeah. The irony is just crazy how it's like some of these business schools out here are going to be, like Stanford's going to be studying like how this whole thing, went to the crapper. And you see the great football teams that we have this year for the conference, and it's just it just shows the total lack of leadership that has been at the helm of leading to where we are now and where we're going. But man, it's definitely going to be interesting to follow moving forward. I think one thing that I think you can be excited about and thankful about with moving to a different conference is that you have teams that you're moving with, that you have history with. That was one thing that again really sucked for Buffs fans, is moving to a conference that we had no history really with anybody, and then again losing our recruiting base and all. Like, there's so many factors of why we went from bad to worse in the PAC, but we never felt truly like a part of the conference, and really because we didn't carry our weight, but we're happy to be getting back to playing some of the teams that we played before. There's a longing, that we've had, like, man, remember when we used to play in Texas all the time and do all this? So I'm glad we're returning to that. It's a bummer that Texas and OU aren't there, but hey, they're the reason we left, or Texas is the reason I feel like we left. So I guess we wouldn't have been back if they were there anyway. So
Those are great. Yeah, exactly. Those are great points you make. Thinking about how that all went down, when it went down, Colorado's willing to go rogue a little bit. And during that time, the Pac-12 was actually a really lucrative spot.
Yeah.
The Pac-12 was a growing conference, a conference that in money, in value, in worth, right, as the Pac-10. And then, to be able to add 2 teams like that at that point in time, I thought was really great. But you're right. It never really, it felt like it wasn't like the rest of the conference didn't welcome you as much as it just never really fit geographically. Being a kid from Portland, Oregon, and being my family generationally from here over 100 years in the area, we're on the West Coast. We are, I spend a lot of time at the beach. My wife's at the beach right now. I could drive to the beach right now and be there before I go to bed. So it's like, for me, we're so close out here as a West Coast. So that whole connection of Seattle to Eugene to Corvallis, Bay Area, LA schools, Pullman's a little farther out. They're a little bit more inland, and then the Arizona schools, originally Pac-8, right? Didn't even have the Arizona schools. So Arizona schools come in, right? So I do think that there's something about geography that is said that, I think the Pac-12 being so far remote and removed from the rest of the country. If Colorado would have carried your weight a little bit more, I guess, but you're right. They were really damaged by coming into a different conference with different teams that were already on top. And you also came in at an absolute time of the rise of Oregon. Oregon was so good during the time that Colorado came in.
Yes.
It was really hard to compete with them for sure.
Man, yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Well, Ryan, again, really appreciate your time. And man, like I said, I will be keeping track of the Ducks again.
Hey,
pretty much any conference winner outside of USC, I'm going to be happy with.
Absolutely. Can we just spend 2 minutes on Buff's schedule going forward? Who do you think are going to be some of your big games? What do you think your record might be at the end? What kind of bowl you thinking you're going to go for?
Well, right now I'm 4 for 4 on my preseason predictions. So nothing has gone astray yet. So I'm going to stay with that. I think USC. I think we will play closer than we played Oregon, but I do have that chalked as a loss. I have us beating. Let's see. Let me pull up the schedule.
At Arizona State, Stanford, I see those both as wins.
Have UCLA beating.
UCLA is a question mark.
I'm giving it to them. I'm giving.
I
would
say so
too.
To
the Buffs.
I would say so too, but I would say UCLA is a question mark. That could be a game where the ball could bounce the wrong direction. Oregon State could be interesting.
I have them losing that game, but it's like flipped. I had us winning on the road at Washington State, not feeling as good about that one right now.
Late in the year.
Feeling a little bit better about Oregon State now. I have a loss for Utah at the end. So I picked us to go 8-4, like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago.
Yeah.
We'll see if we get there, but I definitely think that there are many games on the schedule that should be winnable. We should handle business against Arizona, Arizona State, Stanford. Absolutely. That's 6 wins right there.
And Arizona at home, I think, will be a fun game. I think Arizona late in the year brings something to the table. That's a little kind of mountain rivalry a little bit for you guys. They're going to be an interesting team. I think that UCLA is a question mark. I would say Arizona is a little bit of a question mark too. I think Arizona State, you can absolutely hammer it after, especially the first 2 weeks of those losses for Oregon and UCLA. I think you're going to learn a lot about your team. I think you're going to get better because of those losses.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think, again, the biggest thing for me is wanting to see just improvement throughout the season. I think we might have gotten our toughest test as a whole this past weekend. So we'll just have to see. But I think some of the things that USC does offensively kind of play into a little bit more of our strengths, a little bit more defensively, because they go for a lot of big chunk plays. And again, I just don't think that they're a very good team on the road. So I think it will be a closer game. But outside of getting past this tough part to start the conference schedule, man, I feel like there's going to be a lot of really great close games for the Buffs. And again, man, like it is just incredible what we're experiencing. We still got holes to fill. We all know that, but this is a lot better of a football team than we've had here in a long time. And we're coming, man. We're just getting started.
It'd be fun to see you guys go to like Holiday Bowl, a Vegas Bowl, LA Bowl, something that's West Coast a little bit. It would be really cool to see you guys in the Holiday Bowl.
Yes.
Just to be like your last bowl on the West Coast, your last bowl out here. Bowl affiliation is going to be completely different in the Big 12. So,
I just don't want to be in the Alamo Bowl anymore.
No.
Every bowl that we've been to, I freaking hate the Alamo Bowl. We always get destroyed in the Alamo Bowl. I'm so over it.
Yeah, and the Sun Bowl. I think you want to stay away from El Paso. I just think it would be nice for the Colorado fans to get out to the West Coast, get to sunny San Diego. San Diego's so great at that time of the year and holidays, and they do such a good job at the Holiday Bowl. Holiday Bowl is always one of my family favorites for years, so it's going to be interesting. It would be really terrible to see you guys go to the Sun Bowl and play some ACC team, Wake Forest.
As long as it's not the Alamo Bowl, I will be thrilled. Wanted to end with this, Ryan. I don't know if you saw this, but it looks like you made a little cameo in the Well Off Media video this weekend. So you got to go check that out.
Okay. All right. And is that the Deion's son's thing?
Yeah, Deion Jr. Yeah. So he he published his whole sideline game film or documentary.
I saw him there. He's actually in the picture I sent with you because he's like on the one side. He's like in the retro gear. He's got like the retro jacket on. I'll check that out for sure. Yeah, that's on YouTube.
Yes.
Awesome.
And you can find Deion Jr. on Twitter too if you need a link to the video there. But Ryan, thank you again so much for your time and going a little over with me. Tell everybody where they can find you, as well as find, again, you got some awesome photos from the game yesterday that are on your Twitter.
Oh yeah. Well, my son, he's the photographer. He's on the field, so he's got the real photo. That's Darby Winter Photos. If you want to get to the real nitty gritty, go to my son. Yeah, he's got the good pics there. So SportsChat503 is my handle. I'm on YouTube. I do videos every week. I go to the games. I have a video that I take at the game. So I'll have a full length video. I'll post that hopefully tonight. If I get that, I'll edit it up. But Twitter, Instagram, you can all find me SportsChat503. But all my videos are on YouTube. Easy to find. I ain't hard to find. At the end of the day, I know there was a lot of like, oh, they disrespected this. College kids are college kids. I've been around high school kids my whole life. People are they just do what they do, man. You can't put a lot of stake into all these actions or whatever. And I mean, I just love that when they got on the field, they played the game and they did what they needed to do. I do think that Shedeur is a much better quarterback if he had an offensive line to keep him upright. I mean, that offensive line was in rough shape, and the Ducks just teed off on them. So, again, I think that they could be in trouble with USC. If USC's pass rush is anywhere near what Oregon's is, they could be in trouble. But, USC's defense has been a little question mark here and there this year. So I do think that the Buffs might fare better against them next week. So
that's what I'm expecting. It's all about getting to 1-16 all time against USC.
But But I will be always rooting for you guys, and especially in basketball as well. Can't wait for you guys to be in the tournament in the Big 12. The Big 12 gets like 10 teams in the tournament every year. So yeah, you'll be fine.
Oh yeah. We're definitely coming. That is for sure. We're on our way. Big 12 again. Thank you everybody for checking in so late. Ryan, again, thank you for your time.
So much.
Again, some of these football teams play for wins. I absolutely play for clicks. So please hit that like on the way out. That would be greatly appreciated to help this channel grow. And as always, again, best of luck to Puddles the Duck. Hope you're resting up. Hope you got an ice bath after yesterday. And we'll see you later. Ryan, we'll have you again on the show. Hopefully later this year. I'd love to reconnect again.
Love it. Yeah, anytime. Talk about Pac-12. I'm here for you, bud.
All right, let's do it. Well, thanks again, everybody, and Sco Buffs.